Hello, everyone. Welcome to this Google Digital Garage training session on understanding consumer demand with Google Trends. I'm joining you here from a kind of a rainy Dublin morning. Let me start by introducing myself. Um, my name is Michael Bassous. I'm a trainer for Google's digital skills training program, Google Digital Garage. Just to tell you a bit about myself, I am an experienced account manager and data specialist and trainer, as well as having a background in digital marketing and have worked in this sector for many years. Today, we're going to talk about how do we understand consumer demand with Google Trends. I would also like to introduce our moderator of the day, Emma Gray. Emma is a Google Digital Garage coach and will be interacting with you and answering some of your questions via the instant chat to the right of your screen. You can definitely identify the moderator either by her name as well as the little blue spanner next to their name. So just before we start, I want to do some housekeeping, and call out a few things to help you today. Firstly, if you're having any trouble viewing the webinar right now, please try refreshing your page. If you'd like to join the instant chat, you do need a YouTube account, which you can easily set up by clicking in the box on the right. We'll be pausing throughout the session to answer the more complex questions from the chatbot, so please do free to fire away with your questions throughout. The session today will run for around an hour. So also, just to let you know, we are running this Google Digital Garage training as part of a broader offering of courses. If you'd like to check out the rest of them, we'll be sending out a link shortly so that you can go through the website. Also, feel free to share your experience on social media and tell all your friends and family about these webinars and use the hashtag Digital Garage. Lastly, if you have any feedback from today's session, please complete the feedback form link down in the description box. Once you complete the feedback form, a link will appear for you to download today's content. And we'll also keep this webinar live for you for around 24 hours for you to rewatch. So that being said, and now that you know a bit about me, let's jump right into it. So as part of Google's account management team, I work with a lot of businesses from different shapes and sizes across pretty much every single industry and vertical. So some startups that have recently got funding and are looking to scale, some large domestic brands that everyone in a household will know, to major international brands that operate on a global stage. So across all of these businesses, all of these verticals, there's a hunger for more insights into how they can operate in this dynamic world. So it really doesn't depend on kind of the scale and the scope of your work. Any kind of business can really use data and insight to operate in today's world. So that being said, I've got a lot of great content to share with you today, but I first wanted to acknowledge that we realize that many of you these days are not business as usual. We continue to adapt to COVID-19 in Ireland and across the globe. And we understand that today's landscape is creating new challenges for you, your business, and your customers. Many of you have reached out to let us know that this type of training comes at a crucial time, a time where you are striving to be helpful and relevant to your customers. When market dynamics change rapidly, it can be hard to grasp how people's needs are evolving. So Google Trends allows you kind of to see the topics people are or aren't searching for almost in real time, right at your fingertips. And that's the potential that we're going to look to unlock for you today. So this is a time better than ever to kind of be as efficient as possible to run our businesses. And that being said, we want to look through this very dynamic and changing world. And we look into these three characteristics that can enable our businesses in this current environment. And those three characteristics are: 1, full connectivity; 2, an abundance of data; 3, radical new technology that enable new consumer patterns. So what we're going to do here right now is we're going to start with giving an example just to get a taste of a Google Trend. So we're going to start with an example of searches for how to make hand sanitizers. Obviously, this search has grown by 4,950% worldwide in the last month, and which makes sense in the current situation. Meanwhile, there has been a 600% increase in searches for, can you get coronavirus twice? I believe the answer is yes. And searches for grocery delivery service near me have gone up just over 300% here in Ireland in the last 3 weeks. And that's what this graph shows, as you can see on the slide. So these are a lot of types of searches, and they're very diverse when it comes to terms. And it's quite important for us to know how they're trending. And this is just an example, but if let's take, in addition to that, to what you see on the homepage, you can also explore and gauge interest in virtually any topic. So as we saw between a grocery store and news related, you can really look into any topic, any vertical that you want. So when you search for a term on Google Trends, you'll see a graph showing the term's popularity over time. Hovering your mouse over the graph reveals a number, which reveals an indexed search interest. And so that's how many searches have been done for the particular term relative to the total number of searches done on Google. So indexed is something that we're going to look into later on in the presentation. So we can see here that in the last 4 weeks, searches for cutting your own hair, illustrated by the blue line, has really gone up. And also that's a topic that I'm personally very well versed in. Luckily, I have a roommate to have it done for me, but it's been a struggle nonetheless. And so, for example, cutting hair definitely rose much higher than massage oil, despite massage oil being popular search over a 12-month period. So that's the kind of real time that we're talking about. All right, so first we're going to talk about the empowered consumer in terms of why they are empowered now. So, i.e., it is the access of information. This is basically the why, as you can see, number one. Number two is the what. So the insights. What are we doing and what can you do as well? And then third, it's basically the how, and it's through Google Trends. And so for regards to Google Trends, as marketers, it's easy to get overwhelmed by all of this. So I'll bring you through some of my top trend tips. So now that we kind of have the agenda of the day, we're going to look through the why, the how, and the what and the how. We're going to start by one at a time. So we're going to start by the why, which is data. And personally, this is one of my favorites segments, as I'm a huge data guy, as I probably mentioned. We're going to look into how does data help us in our daily lives. So getting data is not the problem anymore. We have a lot of data. And that being said, the opportunity is to take this huge amount of data and make it manageable for our businesses and be able to interpret it. So as we know, we have so many data points on a lot of people, but the problem is kind of how do we manage that and how do we use that? So from all the data, we need to find the interconnections, the patterns, the themes, and build in context for genuine understanding. All the data in the world is useless unless you can derive an insight that derives valuable action. So you can really have plenty of data sets and know a lot about your consumer, your market, your industry, and you can just have it by bulk. But if you don't know how to use this data, then pretty much it has no value whatsoever. So that being said, since if we don't know how to use the data, it's not going to be helpful. So really, why do we use Google data? Well, there are three main reasons, because at Google, everything comes in threes, if you don't know that already. So when we look at why are we going to use the data from Google, it's because of those three reasons, which are scale, intent, and real time. We're going to start today by going through all of them, but we're going to start with scale, obviously. And so first we have scale, which is an absolutely fundamental. I like to think of it as the building blocks. You can have a Gaudi-esque plan for an incredible building, but without the blocks to actually build it, it can never live up to its original conception. So when we talk about scale, we look at kind of the value and the growth when it comes to data. So Google is a phenomenal, unique source of anonymized and aggregated data to learn about consumers' changing patterns. In the past, companies were looking to learn more about their consumers that had to depend on relatively small sample sizes or analyst reports. On the consumer side, for example, 8 to 10-person focus groups or surveys distributed to a few thousand people at most, which can take months to complete. Digital has changed this paradigm. We have to put our core focus on the scale while shrinking the time to providing a window into observed behavioral truth instead of self-reported answers. So that being said, let me just kind of explain that. So on Google, there are around 100 billion searches performed monthly on Google. And around 15 to 20% of those are unique searches on Google. So you can kind of do the math to see how many unique people search on Google on a monthly basis. And other than that, so when we talk about that kind of scale, it's huge. We're talking about billions of people that are searching on Google that we're gathering anonymous data out of. And if we compare that to kind of the traditional way of getting data, which is where you can go door to door and get, ask questions and have small focus groups that takes weeks and months, you can't really compare that kind of scale. And which brings us to an end to scale. As I mentioned before, if you have any questions, we have a time to answer all of those, but you can start putting them in the chat if you want, so that we can keep those questions relevant. So that being said, we're moving from scale to intent. So intent, it's more the question about what's unique about the Google data. So this is a great quote from Seth Stevens Davidowitz. I'm so sorry for butchering the name. He held a talk, which you can find on YouTube, about his book, Everybody Lies, which I would 100% recommend. He compares the two large data sets as Facebook's How Good Is My Life versus Google's Truth Serum. And he calls Google searches digital truth serum because people tell Google things they might not want to tell their friends, family members, doctors, market researchers. And that's exactly the point. That's why it's called truth serum, because they tell Google things that they might not want to ask other people or tell other people. And which is why people do turn to Google with every kind of questions. And we need to make sure that relevant and useful material is there for those users, particularly in difficult times. So this comes through Google's auto-suggest of I am 20 and so on. I think many of you know this game, but basically you can read I am 20 and, for example, I'm still single, this happened, I'm still, and like this, and Google suggests those different things. And it doesn't only happen when you're 20, it happens, you can suggest it when you're 30, it does happen when you're 40, when you're 50, when you're 60. So this is kind of where we look into the scale. So I have people that are from all ages, from 20 to 60, that are asking things, or that are asking Google things that they might not want to ask other people. And as you can see from the deck and from the slides, it is they're quite personal. And it's like asking Google stuff that you probably only ask yourself. And with the adoption of smartphone, this trend is increasing more and more, and people are starting to ask Google really everything. Take the example of the shared tablet at home. What would your last 10 searches look like on that? Now, take your mobile phone. What would your last 10 searches look like on that? It's very personal. It's very unique to you. It's a brain dump of I want information, and there's a core intent there. Yeah. So now that we kind of wrapped up intent and scale, we're going to move to finally real time. So Google Search is one of the world's largest real-time consumer data sets. We're pushing the data out faster and faster. Rather than weeks or months, we can surface findings in minutes and hours. So that being said, it's very real time, and the data that's coming out is very quick. In the current climate, the vast majority of businesses I've been working with wanted to know, hey, Michael, what happened in the last 7 days? And thankfully, Google Trends was able to answer that for them. So when we look at about the last 7 days, this is the kind of real time that we're talking about. Yeah, so when we kind of wrap up all of this, we look at scale, intent, real time. Scale is kind of the amount of data that we are getting, which is a lot. And the intent is more about, okay, we do have a lot of data, but why is it valuable and useful? It's because it's very personalized to each person. And lastly, real time, because it comes out, the findings come out within hours and minutes, which is crazy to link into. And this actually brings us a third of the way through this presentation. I told you everything comes in threes at Google. So that was number one, which is about the data. I am worried that the juiciest bit of the presentation is what we can do with this data and insights. So I'm sure there'll be lots of questions near the end. So with that in mind, let's jump straight into insights. So the what? Insights. So if you kind of look and understand what insight is, well, we have to know that data does not equal insight, and that's really important there. They're very different. An insight is a credible and novel, i.e. new finding to a clear so what argument. An insight is something you didn't know before from a reputable source of data that may change the way you think about a problem. And it has to be a big discovery that changes market conversation. And as you can see on the slide, to unlock new opportunities, true insights must happen. And as long as we keep in mind that insights and data are two very different things. So when we look at novel, we look at change. When we look at action, we look at impact. And when we look at casualty, we look at relevance. So while I've got the same access to data from Google Trends as each of you has, it's you who has your own industry understanding that will be able to derive an insight for your business. So let me just reiterate on that. So for example, if I have a business of selling shoes, sports shoes, for example, for me, it's important to look at the trends regarding those, shoes. What are trending more? Is it football? Is it basketball? Are they running shoes? So that I can, one, properly manage my business and operate my supply chain. At the same time, also operate my marketing strategy that's going to help me with sales. But when you compare me, someone who's more into sports, with someone who, for example, is not selling clothes, but something completely different, like let's say a B2B HR startup, those kind of search terms are going to be so different. One maybe is global, one is domestic. So each kind of insight that is derived from each person is going to be very different and very customized to your business. And that being said, lastly on insight, I've hopefully hammered home that searches and views are incredibly powerful lens into consumer intentions. But we have to keep in mind that behaviors are a combination of intent and context. And we know that more than ever now. So we're here today to help you navigate our various tools to provide a lens into intent and context and create a more cohesive picture of your consumers, your competitive landscape, and your business opportunities. And as you can see in the formula here, behavior is intention plus context. So actually, before we move forward, when we look at intention, this is something that Google search can provide you with, because you know your consumers' intentions and basically their demand. And context is basically something that comes from your side of the business, as you understand the context of your market and the context of your industry, combined with the right demand of the market provided by Google. You can understand your current consumer behavior. So moving forward with this, we're going to take an example. So for example, the blue line on this graph shows the Google searches for vodka. But can you guess the red trend line here? Any ideas in the chat? You can, maybe give it a few shots. Well, for the sake of time, we're just going to go ahead and I'm going to tell you. But if you actually got it right, kudos. It's actually hangovers, which is great. And we can see an obvious pattern there, which is absolutely brilliant. Vodka goes up, hangovers are down. Then it's the other way around. Hangovers go up, vodka goes down. However, we also must be careful with correlation and causation. For example, the divorce rate in Maine in the US was directly correlated with the per capita consumption of margarine during the noughties. Same graph trend, but not correlated at all. So also this is where context comes in mind, because you know the market, you also have to be able to make those correlation when needed. Moving on to the next slide, I think that makes it, that kind of wraps up insight as a whole. So number 2 is down. Good job, everyone. So now that we finished with data and insights, now that we have our building blocks of data, we have our architectural plan from insight. Now we'll pause for really few questions before diving into building our great architectural actions. So we're just gonna wait a few minutes for questions and before we carry on. And for example, like I'll take this time actually waiting for if there are any questions. If not, we'll move on. But I'll take this time to kind of wrap up data and insights. So before we get into actions, as I mentioned, it's really important to have those building blocks of where our consumer searches for, what are their intent, and how can we derive insight from those kind of data points that we have. And so yeah, we'll take just a couple of more seconds to wait for any questions. Okay, so I see that actually on the chat we got a few guesses from the game previously. So we got gin and cocktail. Nice. Okay, that's actually pretty good. I think it was better than the hangover one, but maybe next time in the next presentation we'll actually use gin and cocktail. We'll see what kind of other correlation we might get. Okay, so perfect. We're gonna move on now. As I said, you can always drop a question on the chat whenever you want, and we're gonna have time later on to deep dive into them. So that being said, we've paused for a question. We're gonna lastly jump into the how. And so now that we're gonna jump into the how, it's basically jumping into actions. Perfect. So I'm just gonna start by asking you guys a few questions, like how many of you know Google Trends? How many have used it for work-related issues? And you can just let us know in the chat too. Like that would be a good to know kind of what is the usage rate, I would say. And we think this is by Google. We truly believe at Google that Google Trends is by far one of our best external tool that is at no charge. But we also find that businesses are unaware of its value. Thus, we are here today to kind of explain that value. And to keep up with the shifting behaviors that are happening every day on a daily basis, consider Google Trends as a core tool that provides access to actual search requests across Google Search, YouTube, Shopping, and Images, which is absolutely crazy to see that those searches are happening not only on search, but across the different Google proprietaries. By entering a keyword or a topic, you can explore what the world is searching for in pretty much real time. So Google Trends uses real-time search data to help you gauge consumer search behaviors over time, and which is quite crazy, I would say. Yeah, so now we're gonna dive into like deeper into Google Trends. So basically, Google Trends can answer a lot of generic questions on the basis of search data. Yeah, so of course, the basic. What are people searching for? Which topics? How are they formulated? What's popular? So an example here is, what do you think was searched for more in Ireland last year? Was it Halloween or Easter? You can always have a guess in the chat box and we'll see if you got it right. For example, well, if you were super quick and hopped on over to Google Trends, you can actually find out that Easter was actually searched for more by about 30%. Now, why might this be? Well, of course, we have Easter holidays for kids, Easter bank holidays, So we must keep those contexts in mind when searching. But Google Trends also has a geographical function and breakdown, which we'll see in a minute. So you can detect where those searches are coming from country and even down to regional and city level. So my example here is that I was having an argument here with my partner who is from the south of Germany, Stuttgart, about white asparagus. So if you don't know, from about now until mid-June, there's white asparagus everywhere when we head back to the south of Germany. But she was swearing to me that it wasn't just a local dish, but everyone was mad about it across Germany. So I hopped on Google search trends. I did a little research to kind of understand who was right in this situation, and we found that there are around 3 times as many searches in all of Germany than just south of Germany when it comes to white asparagus. Weird example, I know, but we're gonna move on. So we looked at what are people searching for, where they're searching for, regional, which I think is one of the most important aspects, and now we're gonna look at when people are searching for. So Trends also reveals insights about when people are searching, allowing you to detect seasonal trends over the course of a year, but also as granular as specific days of the week, even specific hours of the day. So it's the when, it doesn't happen only by day when we look at the time frame of a 7-day week, but we can also look at the specific hour, and sometimes within the next couple of hours you can actually see those real-time searches coming out. So that being said, when is quite important because one, it can kind of detect when trends and fads are about to happen. And as we see, for example, the last 2 days of the week, we started seeing this trend of, white asparagus, my apologies. And then this is something that, for example, maybe farmers and gardeners can kind of capitalize on. So the when is quite important. And finally, the how. How are the searches developing? So Google Trends can tell of the dynamics of the searches of a specific word, phrase, or even an entire category. Like, how has it developed over time compared to other categories? I'll leave my example of this one for a moment when I talk to you through my last week. So that being said, we looked at what are some generic questions answered with Google Trends: the what, the where, the when, and the how. Okay, so to cover some of the basic settings right now. Firstly, Google Trends graphs and data are indexed queries, not absolute search volume. Remember, this is something that I said that we'll go back to. This is the time for it. This means that if you enter a search term, you'll see a high point mark as 100, the most amount of time that was searched versus a 1 or a 0, which is the time when it had the lowest amount of searches relative to that. It doesn't mean that there were 100 searches or 1 search, but these are 2 relative points to each other. Sometimes, depending on your settings or your query, you may also see a lot of zeros throughout the graph. This means that we didn't have enough data there to sample effectively to give you a significant range. My suggestion would be twofold here. One, have a look at settings, open them up a little bit to allow more data in, like opening up the tap a little more to allow more water to flow. And number 2 is selecting a last 7 days date range. As allowed, this narrows our time frame and allows to sample a much greater amount of data. And even if that doesn't work, you can always kind of extend the amount of time. So that being said, we only use indexed. So it's indexed basically in a nutshell means a relative amount of searches. So that we don't give the actual normalized amount of searches. And number 2 is basically normalized. Google Trends normalizes search data to make comparisons between terms easier. In general, and we spoke about this earlier, we're using our phones, computers, tablets, and a lot of other devices more and more. Thus, our overall searches are definitely growing. However, normalize means we show in comparison to total searches. Otherwise, almost all graph would be increasing as searches in general are increasing. So that means if it's going up, for example, the interest in going up more than search term increase on Google. If it's flat, the interest is increasing, decreasing at the same pace as all searches on Google. So that's when we kind of combine both index and normalize, we can understand the trend of the searches, how they're going. Perfect. So now moving on. So first we have our search term, which we add in the top left here. And I'll get into that in more detail in a second. But as a note, you can add topics for simultaneous comparison by clicking the plus compare and typing in your search term, which I believe is very useful. And yeah, now that you can actually compare the search term, I also want to highlight the download, embed, and sharing button also, which allows you to use Google Trends throughout your organization or strategy plan. So you can kind of share that with the company, or you can download it and kind of use that in any way that you'd like. And lastly, we can see the 4 basic filtering functions: country, time period, category, and entire entity choice. Sorry. So whether it be it a web, image, news, shopping, or YouTube. So as you see, it is kind of detailed when it comes to breaking down the search terms to really understand the market specifically as you want it to be. So not only a search term and comparing that search term with another one, but also having the region, the where, the country, and as I said, we can go even deeper to city and region, the time period for the last 12 months, 7 days, 365 days, whatever you want it to be, through categories. And those categories are very detailed. So you can look into your specific industry and your specific market, or you can keep it in general for all markets, which we will get into. And lastly is, excuse me, the web searches. So where are you looking those searches to be coming from? Is it from YouTube? Is it from search? And so on. So those kind of factors really helps when it comes to re-understanding what kind of trends that are very, very specific to your market. So one of the key things to note first is the difference between a keyword and a topic, right? A topic is denoted by another word, such as cuisine, film, company, person, etc., that will include a number of keywords related to that topic. A keyword, on the other hand, is denoted by the word search term. You can see it just below the recipes, just below recipes here in red. In this case, we're just looking at when users typed in recipes at Google. So now we're going to take a few examples for keywords. There's a couple of tricks that are worth noting in particular. So at the top there, you can see the words tennis shoes written out without any punctuation or other details. This is simulating me typing that into Google Trends exactly as it is there. In this example, tennis shoes, we're investigating and graphing searches that users have made on the settings I've inputted, which we described 2 slides ago. That includes tennis and shoes in whatever order, and possibly with other search terms. So you know how we said we could compare search terms? We have a maximum of 25 search terms together. In this example of tennis shoes, which is in the quotation marks at the top there, is an exact search term that I've entered into Google Trends. In this case, we're investigating and graphing searches that have been made already. So what we're trying to say here is, if we add a plus, for example, tennis plus shoes, it's Google Trends is including tennis or shoes in whatever order. So now that we have those different types that are kind of ready to go, which are, if they're in between quotations, so Google Trends is going to take it as it is. If there's a plus, Google Trends is going to take one or the other in whatever order it is. And finally, if we have tennis minus shoes, Google Trends includes only searches for tennis, not for shoes. So now that we have kind of the keywords and topics done and the different types of keywords ready to go, let's look at some others. Just to recap on the types, we have the tennis minus shoes, which excludes shoes, tennis plus shoes, which is either or, and we have the between quotation, which is the exact match. So now that we have those wrapped up, let's first have a look at seasonality and time. In an example here, we can see that although recipes, illustrated by the red line on the graph, still has a dominant share of searches relative to takeout, illustrated by the blue line. In Ireland specifically, over the last 7 days, on the 10th and 11th, Friday and Saturday at 6 p.m., those two indexed queries are comparable in quantity, as we all weighed up the options of just getting something delivered. And you can obviously do this over longer periods of times, noticing peaks and from 5 years worth of data to help predict where consumer patterns will move on a yearly basis even. So that being said, although the top searches for recipes is much higher than takeout, takeout also has a trend line that we can notice at many points that are at some times are the same amount of searches from recipes. And this is where the Google Trends insights become valuable. So when we search for a term in Trends, you can also explore the top searches, rising searches, and searches related to your term. So this is an example from Ireland in the last 7 days, as we mentioned, between recipes and takeout. But I think for now, we're just going to stick with recipes. And as you can look at the visuals and table, we can actually look exactly where those searches are coming from in Ireland. So it is county-based, even city-based, and this will also help us know exactly what drives interest, but also where. And so the where is on the left side, and on the right side, we can see what are similar and related queries. And this kind of helps you understand what are people searching for when it comes to this market or very similar keywords and topics. So we can expand your search by geography, as mentioned, on the left-hand side, and not only with one search and one topic, but also even when you compare. So you can look at the blue versus the red here. So I think the examples here are gardening and takeaway. Yes, I know. So you can use all of Ireland, for example, and see which counties trend higher or lower, and see, for example, which one is kind of stronger where. So in this example, the lovely West Coast has a higher interest than the East in being, tending their gardens. This view is really interesting, though, if your business has an international footprint, where you can use the worldwide dropdown to see how people's searches differ from one country to another. And so as we can see from a county level in Ireland, you can also see on a city level globally. If you want to look at Italy, Germany, the US, a specific state in the US, if you want to look in, the East side. So there are a lot of, literally a lot of options that you can go through when it comes to worldwide if you are an international company. And even if you're a local domestic, we can deep dive more into each country as well. So that being said, now we are ready to give this a demo. So we're going to try it out, and we're going to kind of go through some terms to see how it goes. And so I would love for you to kind of put in the chat kind of examples. I think you already did. So we're going to take some of those examples and some of those terms, and we're going to create a demo. Yeah, perfect. So as you can see, we shifted to Google Trends, and the first thing you're going to see is explore what the world is searching. And we're going to take some of the examples from you guys, and I believe, let me see what I will pick. I think I'm going to start with raincoats and jeans. Okay, so we're going to start with raincoats, as today is a rainy day. And okay, so I searched for raincoats, and this is specifically for Ireland. But I wanna make it a bit more interesting and compare it with something else, which is jeans. So now that we have two terms, the differences is quite crazy. I'm not going to stop here, maybe to only compare these two. And I'm going to stick with Ireland. And instead of past 12 months, maybe I'm going to look into past 7 days. And I'm going to keep it all categories and all web searches. So as you can see, the difference is crazy between jeans and raincoats. As you know, raincoats has some peaks relative to jeans. But this doesn't mean that the amount of raincoat searches are low, they're just low relatively. So what happens if we remove jeans and we keep raincoats? You can see here the kind of trend line that raincoat is also getting. So before we continue with the different visuals, then maybe let me try to get another example from you guys. So I have personalized prints. Okay, let's see if this is gonna how this is gonna go. Okay, so not enough data. I think it's way too specific. But let's see. I also saw a gold jewelry. Perfect. And let me compare with something that is, I don't know, maybe a bit similar. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, we can see a bit of competition here between gold jewelry and silver. I kept it in Ireland last 7 days for all categories. And I'm not sure categories we've deep dive enough about it, but these are the kind of categories you can see. So a lot of different ones. So literally any kind of industry and vertical that you might want to look into. And even if you jump into one of them, there are subcategories under that: apparel, consumer electronics, entertainment, luxury goods. I think we can look into luxury goods at this time, and that was not enough. So that being said, make sure to always get into categories to make sure. And now that we can kind of compare, and they are kind of close, we can see that gold jewelry are still much higher than silver, although the trend lines are kind of similar. So I think this is something related to the the market itself. So if we go down and we break it down by city, so we only have a Dublin that is basically looking into those search terms, but usually depending on the terms, you can see it on different counties and different cities as well. And even if we compare it by by global, worldwide example. And these are related queries that you can see, as I said, and this should expand your understanding of the market itself. So we have Wear and Sons, we have brand names, we have different kind of brands, the things that are being searched, and you can look at the different Pandora, for example, and you can look at the different queries and how much they're actually going up and down during the week. And that being said, I want to actually switch to worldwide just for us to see. Okay, so worldwide gold is much higher relatively. And when we look at the heat map, the US, Canada, Australia, a bit of India, South Africa, and UAE, UK, Dublin, Germany, France are the regions that search for this more and more. And as I said, we're looking into region, but we can also deep dive into cities. And these are related queries that we're looking at. So now that we have this demo covered, we're gonna go back to the presentation. All right, perfect. Sorry for that transition. And that being said, we're gonna finally stop for our final set of questions, if you have any on the tool. And I do feel, I believe we have a few questions from, I'm so sorry, Izzy Govinser. I butchered the name so much. I do apologize. I am not Irish, so this might be a bit difficult for me. So the question is, the trends were showing news on top of the trends as well. Is that no longer available? So I believe you're talking about so there used to be a news segment next to the trends before. Yeah, so well, this I think moved to more of like on the homepage of Google search, where the news have shifted towards. But I believe trends now is actually only about getting you the right data and insights. And when it comes to the market news, this is where we kind of keep it more for businesses. And if there's anything else I missed, Emma maybe will drop a link to help you with that, to find the right one, the right article for that. So on another question, I think we have ABC Prince. Can you set some kind of notification of trends? I don't think you can put a notification, but what you can do is kind of download and embed the trends into your own system, where every week or every day you can go back to it and kind of have your own your own setup already done. So your own categories, your own search term that you can kind of refresh every now and then. But that's actually a really good point to look into, to have it sort of a automatically reporting system. At Google, I learned to never say never, so that's actually a great question. But no, as of today, you can't really put a notification, but you can download and actually put it up, embed it with your own system. And let's see if we have any other questions. I believe for now, this is it. And that being said, if you guys have any other questions, just do make sure that you either drop us a note, or you can always go through Google search and actually find the answer to that through our Google support docs and articles. And I'm just going to wait for just a few more seconds for any other questions, but I believe we're ready to carry on. All right, so that being said, everyone, thank you so much for all of your questions, for attending today's session. We're going to start by wrapping up here as we are out of time. But of course, at Google, there are always next steps. So what are our next steps? Well, you can go to google.com/trends after this webinar and start understanding some of the insights about your industry. Make sure to use everything that you learned today for your benefit, and kind of use it to understand and get a very deep dive into the industry when it comes to your consumer insights. I truly believe this is much better than going door to door and asking for kind of the user behavior in your market. And that being said, it doesn't stop here. We have a lot of different types of products and services at Google. You can check out the rest of our external tools at Think with Google. This is sort of a subscription based of think of this website as your holy grail of Google info that allows you access to all the insights and tools we use. So Think with Google is sort of a newsletter that is being sent out every now and then. It actually maybe once or twice a week, and it helps you. So what it happens, it sends you very relative and relevant newsletters for you to understand sort of what market industry you're interested in and what are the trends globally and regionally. So it helps you get inspired with real life examples, some best practices, and we'll take a quick look at the research and data page, plus some of the other Google tools available that can help you on top trends, all accessible from the Think with Google site. So you'll also find a lot more. It's really a hub for you to start with and find what you're looking for. I personally have already subscribed to this way before I actually started at Google, because this is the kind of stuff that always kept me up to date with everything I need in the industry that I am interested in, as well as everything that's happening globally. So you can have, these are some examples of the different article on shifts in consumers' behavior, like these studies on seasonal holiday trends. And yes, the newsletter are sent on a seasonal basis. And of course, our best-in-class search or video examples from top brands, best practices, and success stories. And other than that, we also have the Google News. It's a great way to stay up to date with all the top global and local headlines all in one place. This is honestly one of the first things I do when I wake up and I check the news. It lets you see top global and local headlines in various categories. It keeps you a lot up to date so much. And you can kind of also customize your newsfeed tailored for your interest. If, for example, you want to know about sports first and then the weather, because knowing the weather in Ireland is very important as it changes every 3 seconds. And after clicking on, whatever you want to, know about, the machine learning kind of starts understanding your interests and starts customizing and personalizing your news feed every day. And you can set up an alert for the question earlier about notification of trends. But you actually put a notification for this one here, and it kind of tells you, delivers these news stories and articles directly to your inbox. One thing I've done, which is kind of sort of a cheat, I have a Google Home, and every morning it actually tells me those news whenever I wake up, alongside with the weather and so on, which is really kind of a really nice integrated system when you put everything together. And lastly, don't forget about video. YouTube is now second largest search engine in the world. And if you want to guess, the first largest search engine is Google search. So you can get some really valuable insight for your business through YouTube trends, which is very similar. And you can see YouTube trends to see what potential consumers are obsessing over on YouTube. Go straight to the trending video feed, check out YouTube culture and trends site for a look at trends that emerge on YouTube and videos that reflect broader cultural trends. You can also subscribe to YouTube View to get the latest trending YouTube content delivered directly to your inbox as well, so you can have those automatically sent to yourself. So that being said, please do continue your learning online, book a live webinar, and check out all the other online courses. As I said, we're running many more Google Digital Garage webinars in a variety of different subjects. If you'd like to check out the schedule of webinars, please see information on this in the description below. There will be a lot of different topics available to watch, and we will be updating the schedule regularly. Also, if you'd like to share your experience, as mentioned, on social media, and to tell your friends and family about us, be sure to use the hashtag Digital Garage. And you can also send them the link to the registration forms for those webinars. Plus, if you'd like to carry on learning online in your own time, you can always check out the Google Digital Garage website for more online training courses, which are available 24/7. Finally, if you have feedback from today's session, please do let us know. You can complete the feedback form down in the description box. And we're going to also leave the video up for you for around 24 hours for you to rewatch. So if you're interested also in receiving this deck and kind of going through the content yourself, once you complete the feedback form, you're going to get a link at the end, which will get you this deck that you can keep with you. So as soon as you get the feedback, you finish the feedback, you can also get the deck. So that being said, thank you everyone for joining today. We look forward to welcoming you again to another Google Digital Garage training session very, very soon. That being said, I'm Michael, and this has been an absolute pleasure to walk you through the session today. Do let us know if you need anything else. And that being said, I think we are hopping off for today. So thank you very much, and we'll see you soon. Goodbye.